Hey guys, how's it going? Coach Wesson here with Good Lift Performance. In today's video, I'm going to be going over mental strategies to approach heavy lifts, either in training or on the platform. I've been helping a lot of my athletes out with this recently, and so I thought this would be a good topic for a YouTube video because if it helps my athletes, it could probably help a lot of other people as well. So there's a handful of different strategies we can use to help us prepare mentally for a big lift, and it all kind of depends on what you need personally. So you can, plug and play with these, mix and match them however you need, but ultimately our goal with this is when we are approaching a heavy lift, we want to be in the right mindset. And so finding whatever helps get you into the right mindset is crucial, because if you are approaching a near max lift, your mindset is everything, right? You can make or break a lift before you even touch the bar just by where your mindset is at. And so it's really important that you know how to get yourself in the right zone so that you can execute to the best of your abilities. So starting off with the first one, I like to go, this is one of my go-tos when I'm talking to athletes, is look back at your previous training. So, most of the time when we are attempting to take a lift in training, especially at, let's say it's the end of the block, right? And we might be going for a PR. We aren't just loading a weight for the sake of loading a weight. It's normally a strategic progression up to that weight, where if we look back at our previous weights of the previous weeks of the block, they should logically conclude that we should be able to lift this rate. Like, all signs show that we should be able to lift this weight. If it doesn't, right, if our numbers are not suggesting that we can lift this big weight, then maybe that's just not a weight we should be attempting. Maybe we should change the strategy and change whatever attempt we want to take, either in training or on the platform, right? So looking back at previous data to show the future, essentially. And you can do that both in a literal data sense of, hey, I've done all these points, my estimated 1RM max is here, I should be able to do this, right? And there's sort of this progression of, we know, hey, on week 4 I show up strong. We know that based off of what I did on week 3, it should show out to be here. So we can look at it from a purely data standpoint, but also you can look at it from a more of a psychological standpoint of hey, look at everything you've done in the cycle so far, whether that's just in the past couple weeks or within the whole meet prep itself or whatever training cycle you're in, right? You can look back at that, be like, man, I've hit some of the best weights I've ever done before, or I've hit these weights that I've previously hit, but I've hit them better than ever. And so you can look at it from the pure data standpoint, or just more of that psychological reassurance that, hey, my training cycle has gone really, really well. Everything's moved well, felt good. I should be able to do this. So looking back at old training is one of the easiest ways you can help reinsure yourself that you are prepared and able to do this lift, and that this lift is the correct weight for you. So that's my number one strategy there. Not necessarily in terms of the best strategy, but just in terms of the first one I go to, one of the first ones I think of. Number 2 strategy is trust your coach or trust your game day handler, right? So at least with the way I coach athletes, every week during their check-in, I'm giving them a target load for their top set that they should aim for. And it's based off of what I believe they can do. And a lot of times, when I've had, the reason why I'm making this video is because when I've had this conversation with athletes, I'm like, hey, you should go for, based off of how this week went, I think you should go for this number the following or this next upcoming week. And that's where they'll get psyched out. They're like, oh, I've never done that before. Oh, hey, that's a big PR. That kind of scares me a little bit. And when I'm giving them these loads, I always remind them hey, A, as I just mentioned, the training shows that you can do that, and B, I totally believe you can do it. So a big factor that can help people or lifters is knowing that your support system believes in you, right? If you know that other people believe that you can do it, and not in that fuzzy hurrah, you can do whatever you put your mind to sense, but people truly believe that you can do it, they know you can do something, that can help build a lot of confidence in a lifter, which is a big part of my coaching philosophy, is building not only lifters' confidence in themselves, but building their confidence that I believe in them. They know I am confident and I believe in them. And so when I'm having this conversation with them, I'm reinforcing that, hey, I know you can do this, and it's all about if you believe in yourself, because I believe in you. So knowing your support system believes in you, whether it's in training, it's, your coach telling you can do this, or if it's on the platform, it's your coach or your game day handler. If they are being smart and strategic with their attempt selection and they say, hey, I think we can do this, then believe in them, because they are making a judgment call based off of what they believe you can do, right? And so knowing that other people trust and believe in you can be a really positive factor for building that confidence. Number three is going to be visualization. So visualization is where we literally pretend or imagine ourselves going through the lift, right? We imagine what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. We imagine everything about it in terms of leading up to it, doing the lift, how and after it, right? And so mentally preparing like that is like as close as you can get to practicing the lift without actually doing it. So mentally preparing for it allows you to almost get like practice reps in, and that is a great strategy for preparing your body for what's going to come. Like even though you're not physically doing it, like visualizing it, imagining that's happening, and running through what it's going to feel like, look like, all that stuff can actually help prepare your body to go and do it. Your body is more prepared for it because you have been walking through it and thinking about it and visualizing what that's going to be like. So visualization can be a really big one for helping before a lift. It's basically as close as you can get to doing practice reps with a top set without actually doing practice top sets, right? Number 4 is going to be getting in the right arousal zone. So by arousal, I mean, how psyched up are you? How excited are you? And so there's sort of this kind of looks like a bell curve of how excited a lifter can get without performance decrement. So like on the lower end, if we are too calm, right, we're not going to be, our nervous system isn't like ramped up and excited. We aren't like, it's almost like you're sleepy, right? If you ever try to lift while you're sleepy, it doesn't go as well, right? You're not as like sharp and amped, right? So we need to make sure we're getting psyched up in the zone, excited to lift. And so that's going to put us further into the arousal zone. And then there's sort of this peak place right in the middle of the bell curve where this is our optimal arousal zone, where we are excited enough, aroused enough, our nervous system is ramped up enough to where we're going to hit that peak performance. And then if you try to go beyond that, you can actually see performance decrement where, let's say you're too excited and you actually like misgroove the lift, or you do something that you don't normally would do, or you just don't think about it and you like just fumble the ball essentially, right? So there's such thing as too much hype, right, or too much arousal, and so you don't want to do that. So you want to find your optimal level of arousal. So that's going to be different for everybody, right? Some people really want to get like their back slapped or hit and like ammonia sniffs, right? Other people just need to like have their music on and get in the zone. They're almost like a quiet intensity, right, where they're not like physically showing it, but they're more quiet. They're like getting in the zone. They're preparing. They're like elevating their heart rate just internally. You also have other people who are like, they're going to be pacing around. They're shouting. They're very like they need to put off energy in order to like bring everything up, bring their heart rate up, bring their energy up. More if you're that quiet intensity, you're often more sitting off in the corner, your music on, your tunnel vision, you're getting amped up, ready to go. And other people actually like their arousal zone is so low where they don't really need to do any of that. It's more of a quiet confidence of they're just chilling, they're in the zone, and they're just like dialed and focused in, they're confident, right? They don't need to get that hyped. So that might be more of like a bench press where it's a lot more technical versus on a squat. You want to get a little hyped, but not too much. And then maybe on a deadlift, especially if you're a conventional puller, you're getting really hyped. You're sniffing the ammonia. You're doing, everything like that. So it all depends on like where your optimal zone is, as well as knowing like how much that's going to fall off on the other side, right, of not overdoing it. So like a good example of that would be when I know I have a big set of deadlift, what I like to do is, I was told this a long time ago, and I don't know how accurate this is, but it's always worked really well for me, is if you ever see me deadlift right before a big set, I'll like stomp my feet really hard. And so what that does is that when I stomp my foot, that ground reaction force like sends back up into like my, like through my like body up into my brain, and it like gets me excited, like amps me up. It's like, I heard that's like what the Russian weightlifters used to do. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I was told. And I've always done that before a big deadlift, and it's always really helped. It gets me like in the zone, hyped up, and it like almost feels like a momentary boost of energy where it's almost like taking a sniff of ammonia. but not as strong as that. So I like to do that a lot for like a top set of deadlift. But I will say that I've noticed when I do that, when I go to do my down sets, the dopamine drop off, it causes me to make the down sets feel really hard afterwards. So I really try to save that for like my week 4 deadlift or whatever the last week of the block is. So it's also important that all right, what do I need to do to get in the right zone? But also understanding like, we don't want to do that like week 1 of a block, right? Or on your first attempt and then like you gas yourself out for the second and third attempt, right? You want to make sure you're pacing yourself and pull out the cards when you need them, right? So maybe you're layering on your hype where like you take your opener, you don't have much of anything. And then like second attempt, maybe you do a small sniff of ammonia, but not much. And then on your third attempt, now it's a big sniff of ammonia and a back slap or something like that. You can also layer it like that. So all those different factors that you need to do in order to get hyped. And whatever like you do on the platform, you should try to mimic that in the gym when you're taking your heaviest sets of the block, so that you're kind of preparing and practicing that. So you know exactly, well, you're practicing that in the gym, so you know exactly what that feels like on the platform. You don't want to do something on the platform that you don't normally do in the gym because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So also imagine that you're in that meet scenario can help you and help with practicing. Number 5, similar to the headspace one of getting into the right arousal zone, but this one is going to be playing your favorite music. So this is actually something that I am guilty of where I'm a big podcast listener. I actually don't listen to a ton of music. And so a lot of times when I'm warming up, I'll listen to a podcast. And then when I get to my top sets, that's when I listen to music. But then I realize that I'm not as in the zone or fired up doing my warm-ups. So my warm-ups actually feel harder than they should because I'm just not in the right headspace. So what I really recommend to my athletes is if they're like me, where they like to listen to podcasts a lot, listen to, your favorite music leading into your primary lifts for the day or your compound lifts, whether that's squat, bench, or deadlift. And then once you're done with those, you're moving on to your accessories. Then you can put a podcast in it because it's a little bit more chill. And that kind of helps down regulate you too after the big top sets as well. But making sure that you have your favorite music on, so that like even during warm, so that you're in the zone, you're kind of focused, right? Music has been shown to help increase strength because it helps eliminate distraction and just makes you focus. And so whether you're warming up in the gym or in the warm-up room for a competition, making sure you have your music going can be a really big performance increaser for that. So it helps you keep you focused and get you in that right arousal zone. So listen to your favorite music. All right, so for the next one, we have unrack the bar with authority. So when we approach the bar, we cannot be timid. We are going for a near max lift. We need to be approaching the bar with high energy and high confidence. And so a lot of times when lifters are going for a near max lift and they're scared of it, they're going to unrack the bar timidly because they're afraid of it, right? So they unrack the bar and they're like, oh, that feels heavy. And then as soon as you do that, as soon as you unrack the bar and it feels like heavy on your back, you're already like emotionally defeated because you thought it was going to be heavy. You unrack it, and then you realize, oh shit, this is heavier. It's even heavier than I thought it was going to be. And that can cause you to spiral down into a bad headspace where you're just going to miss the lift. Even if you strength-wise had the potential to do it, psychologically you just took yourself out of the game. So unracking the bar with authority is really, really important. So what I mean by that is like when you're getting underneath the bar with squat, really get underneath it, unrack it as hard as you can. Not so much to where you're going to freaking throw the bar off your back and it's going to hurt someone or you, but really like unrack it with some oomph, like really unrack it hard. And the harder you do it, the more oomph you put into it, the lighter it's going to feel on your back. We can, especially when we're doing, sub-maximal work, the weight is so easy that we don't necessarily have to think about unracking it that hard. But when you get to those maximal sets, those top sets, or your attempts in competition, those are going to be heavy, right? They're near max. They're going to feel heavy on your back. So you have to unrack it with oomph. You can't unrack that weight the same way you're going to unrack 60%. So make sure that you really put some oomph underneath it, and that's going to help it feel lighter in your back. Or with your unracking the bench, right? Unrack it with some oomph, and that's going to make it feel lighter in your hands or on your back with the squat, and that will make it feel lighter, and that's going to help build a ton of confidence. If you take out a near max weight and you're like, oh, that feels easy, that feels light, your confidence just goes to the roof. You're like, oh, I got this, I can do this. So how heavy it feels on your back can either make or break your confidence before you go into the lift. So make sure you unrack it with some authority so that it feels as light as possible in your hands or on your back. This next one's more for competition, but that is keep your focus on what's directly in front of you. A lot of lifters will, especially let's say it's squat, and they're thinking about the whole meet. They're already thinking about their bench, they're thinking about their deadlift, or they're thinking about other things that's going on in their life. You can't be focused on any of that other stuff. You got to be focused on what's directly in front of you, the next attempt. Or if you're in the gym, just focusing on executing your training the best you can. When we're in a meet, right? You hit your opener, then we go to our second attempt. A lot of people will psychologically check out of their second attempt and sandbag it because it's not their opener and it's not their third, right? The opener can be a little nerve-wracking because especially on squat, it's the first lift of the day. You want to get it in. And then once you get it in, you're like, all right, confidence is good. Your nerves start to drop a little bit. And then if you go into your second, a lot of people will think, oh, I'm going to try to conserve energy on my second so I can push it harder on my third. So I'm not going to try as hard on my second. But then your second attempt might actually feel heavy because you didn't try as hard, and now you fatigued yourself more, and now it's going to make your third harder than it should have been. So making sure that you focus on just the next attempt in front of you, and B, make sure you put your maximal effort into each attempt leading up to your third, right? You don't want to sandbag your opener or your second. Even if it's a light opener, you want to put as much oomph into it, right? You don't want to be conserving energy. You want to put as much oomph into the bar as you can. It's just a single. You've done a lot more volume than that in training. It's not going to fatigue you or dissipate your top end strength. So you should be punching it as hard as you can for all those reps, and then just focusing on that attempt ahead of you and not thinking about what I have to hit to keep up with my competition on the bench or deadlift or what anything else that's going on, right? Just focusing on what's directly in front of you, execute that to the best of your ability, and then move on to the next attempt, and then the next attempt, and then string all those attempts together. If you listen to a lot of high-level lifters, that's exactly what they do. Is they're able to tunnel vision on the very next attempt and just focus on that. They don't let anything else distract them, and that's how they can put all of their energy into that lift and move lots of weight, because their energy isn't spent focusing on other things. It's just spent focusing on what's directly in front of them. The last one on my list, but certainly not least, actually probably the most important one on this list, to be honest, but the last one on the list here is positive self-talk. So a lot of athletes struggle with negative self-talk, especially when they are comparing themselves to others, when they're looking at how much progress they are making compared to others, or when they are approaching a weight that they are scared of, they will talk down to themselves that they can't do it, right? All these negative things that don't actually help them. So this goes beyond just you're mentally preparing for your top set or your meet attempt. This is really important just for viewing your training overall, and overall just your general mental health of positive self-talk. If you go into a session not like doubting yourself and talking down to yourself, you're already going to be defeated before you even start the session, right? And so it's important that we have these positive affirmations for ourselves, whether that's just in your head right before you do an attempt, or if you've written them down and you read them to yourself to remind you, whatever. There's lots of different ways you can do that, but making sure that we are positive when we talk to ourselves, when we think through things, is really, really important. Because when you have doubt in yourself, then it's basically just the self-fulfilling prophecy of, if you don't believe you can do it, your body won't even let you do it. Versus if you truly believe you can do something, then your body can actually be capable of things you never thought possible. So making sure that you work through positive self-talk, whether that's something that's not easy for you to do, definitely suggest reaching out to a sports psychologist or just a regular therapist that can help with that, because that can be a huge benefit. I've had to help a couple lifters with that positive self-talk, and luckily I've been able to give them suggestions that have helped, and we haven't had to refer out yet. But that's definitely where, if if the beyond the basic suggestions of positive affirmations going into a lift, that's kind of my scope of that. And so if we're beyond that, we need extra help. Don't be afraid to reach out to a professional that can help you, because if we aren't having positive self-talk, positive affirmations, and positive views of ourselves, then not just our top step, but our training and other things in our life are probably not going to be going super well. And just by changing that view of ourselves can really go a long way. So positive self-talk, positive affirmations can make a really big deal with performance, both in the gym and on the platform. So that is my list of strategies for mentally preparing for a heavy lift, either in training or on the platform. It's not an exhaustive list for sure. Those are just the ones that I think about and I talk to my lifters about. If you guys have any strategies that you use that I did not mention, put that in the comments down below. I would love to hear about it. If you found this video useful, please make sure to hit that like button and hit the share button so that other people can see this. I think this is a really important video, and so hopefully you guys found it useful. Make sure to hit the subscribe button for more powerlifting content, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.